Today I'm going to give you my 7 steps of building a super heavy duty arch trellis that's going to last you a lifetime. The first step is, before you even think about building your arch trellis, you need to think about where you're going to put it. And what I mean by that is you need to think about where the sun is positioned in relation to your arch trellis and the rest of your garden. I know for us, the sun is going to rise over there and it's going to set over there, and it kind of goes in a perfect line down my garden. I purposely placed my arch trellises in a way that as the sun is moving over those arch trellises, where it's casting the shadow, it's going to be in the walkway of the garden. None of those plants are going to be shading any other plants in my garden. For a lot of full sun plants, this is really going to cause an issue if you're shading them when they're not supposed to be shaded. So look at your property, look at your garden, look at where you're wanting to place your arch trellises, and really think about the shadow that the plants are going to be casting and make sure you put it in the right spot. Step number 2. Figure out where you can get a good cattle panel. For us, we just went to the Tractor Supply down the road and we got the 16-foot long by 50-inch wide. I think they're called the 10-line cattle panel or something like that. But you can get these at Tractor Supply. They're $29 here in Utah where I'm at. Now, the best way to transport one of these is gonna be in a trailer. They're 16 feet long, so you need a decently long trailer. But if you can't get your hands on a trailer, there's a couple of other things you can do. The first thing, which is probably the next thing I would recommend, is going to be get a truck and get a strap, like a ratchet strap. You can take one of these cattle panels and you can fold it just kind of like it's sitting right here, bring it around, fold it in half, and actually wrap a ratchet strap around it and strap it. It can kind of spring open on you, and there's some really sharp edges. It can cut you pretty good. Fold it in half, strap it together, and then put it in the back of a truck, and that works great. If that isn't an option for you, the last option I would recommend is get a pair of bolt cutters. Let me show you. Get a pair of bolt cutters just like this. I'll put a link down in the description for these ones, because these cut through these cattle panel like butter. So you can cut the panel in half and then put it into a truck that way, and that's gonna be much easier. Or you can even cut it in half and strap it to the roof of a car. Do whatever you need to get this paneling home. Keep in mind that if you do cut it in half, what you would wanna do in that case is, once you get it home and you actually start building that arch, you wanna take the 2 pieces and overlap them by about 2 feet, and then zip tie those together, and you can kind of bring it around and make it arch again. It's not gonna be the 16 feet that you're used to, but it will still arch. Step number 3 is you want to find yourself some T-posts, and not just any T-posts, because they come in so many different lengths. You want to make sure that you get the right length for what you're doing specifically. We went with 7-foot T-post, which is a really long T-post. For example, the fence that we built around our garden, we used 6-foot T-post for that because we didn't need that extra foot. We have the T-post actually in the ground, and then we have the trellis. It doesn't start until it's up above that bed. So the trellis doesn't actually start for a good 18 to 20 inches above the ground, and we really needed that extra support up here to hold on to this trellis. So we have 2.5 feet of this T-post into the ground, and that still gives us plenty of room to strap this panel to up here. If you are starting your trellis on the ground, you can get away with going with maybe a 5-foot, a 5.5 foot, 6-foot T-post, but I would recommend you definitely want to have at least a few feet where you can connect the cattle panel to the T-post itself, especially if you want this arch trellis to last you years and years to come. You want to make sure that it's really supported. If you've worked with T-posts before, or if you've built one of these before, or if you're ever planning on ever doing this more than just the one time or just the one trellis, get yourself one of these, because it's going to save your arms and it's going to save your hands and it's going to make your life so much easier. This is roughly $30. It's a post driver, and you put them on top of the T-post and you can pound them into the ground, and it makes it so much easier than trying to hit it with a hammer, especially when you're working with the really tall ones like we did. Reaching up 7 feet, I would have had to get on a ladder to pound those in, but this thing was an absolute lifesaver. I'll leave a link down in the description below. You can get them on Amazon, or you can get them at any Lowe's or other hardware store that you have around you. Trust me, you want to do it. And what we did to make sure that all of our T-posts actually went the same depth into the ground is we kind of put the first post into the position that we wanted it. And as we were putting it in, we looked at where the T was, and then we kind of counted how many nubs went into the ground. And if you don't know what I mean by nubs, these T-posts have these little nubs. That's the best word I can think of for them. They're nubs, that's what they are. On that first post, we really figured out the sweet spot of where we wanted it. We counted how many nubs there were, and for us it was 5. So we had the T, and then we had 5 nubs. So we took a marker, and on every single one before we put them in the ground after that, we put a line right there on the right above the 5th nub, and we were able to pound all the posts into the exact same level. So all of these posts going all the way up and down our whole little tunnel here, they're all relatively the same, so they're not all cockeyed, and if you're anything like me, you're gonna want them to be pretty even. And the last thing I would recommend with your T-posts is get 2 T-posts for each side of your trellis. So like on this trellis right here, I've got one on this side of the cattle panel, I've got one over here on this side, and then I have 2 more on the other side of this arch. I've seen this done with 1 T-post on each side, and it works, especially if you're only planning on doing this one season. You can put 1 on each side and it's gonna be fine. But the thing I'm worried about is I don't wanna get 3/4 of the way through my season, have massive plants growing over my arch, and then have a big windstorm come through and blow the whole thing over. I built these to last the next 10 years, 20 years. These are gonna last me a very long time, and I made them permanent until I want to break them apart and take them down. These are staying right where they're at, they're not going anywhere. Do yourself a favor, if you can afford it and if you can do it, get 2 T-posts for each side of your arch. So 4 T-posts total per trellis. What are you most excited to grow on your trellis? For me, I think this is what I'm most excited to grow this year on our trellises. This is a tiger melon. So it's a little melon that's super awesomely colored. It's supposed to be really sweet. I've never actually grown them before. I love hearing about what you are growing and what your garden plans are and how you're growing different things. So let me know down in the comments. I'm excited to hear about it. Step number 4 is decide the spacing of the gap in between your arch. The spacing is really important because if you do it too thin, you're gonna have a really tall and really skinny trellis that you won't be able to reach the top of. Mine is almost pushing it. I can jump and touch the top of it, but if this was any closer together and any taller, I wouldn't be able to reach to harvest anything without a big step stool. If this was any further apart, honestly, we wouldn't have as big of issues as if it was closer together. If it was further apart, what you're gonna run into is you're gonna have kind of a shorter trellis. So if these were placed on the ground instead of on top of the bed and they were spread further apart, I would have to duck as I was walking through my tunnel. And that's not something I wanna do. I wanna be comfortable in my garden. I wanna be able to walk through and really have the space to work and enjoy being in here. By the end of the season, I want this entire thing to be full of all kinds of food that I can come in here and harvest. I'm gonna have to spend time in here kind of cradling the melons. I'm gonna have to come in here and put the melons, get melon hammocks and make sure they're supported so they don't fall. When you're building one of these, build it to where it's comfortable for you to work in consistently. Mock it up in your yard. Map it out how wide you're gonna want it, set it up, and kind of see what the difference is depending on how far apart you have it. Another option is if you need to put it kind of closer together, maybe cut off a couple feet of your panel. So that way it's not quite as tall and you can kind of bring it down a little bit to a level that you can work at. Just kind of experiment with it. Don't go forward with your project without actually testing it out and seeing what your arch is actually gonna look like. Number 5 is gonna be actually moving your panels. And this can be tricky and honestly kind of funny to watch. But today I'm gonna show you 2 ways of moving your panels, one of which is gonna be with a partner and one of which is gonna be by yourself. Ideally, you want a partner to do this with. So the day that you're planning on getting all this done and moving your panel around, ask for help if you have it available, because it's gonna make your life a whole lot easier and you won't get laughed at by the neighbors when they see you trying to do it by yourself. But I'm gonna show you how to do it by yourself so you can laugh at me. Okay, so if you're doing this with a partner, it's extremely easy and straightforward. You put one person on one side, one person on the other, and you carry it. It's gonna be a little bit floppy. You kind of have to communicate with the person that you're working with, but it's pretty easy. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Moving it by yourself is a little more tricky because it's not that they're super heavy, but they're super flimsy and floppy and awkward, and they're just kind of difficult to carry. Pick up that panel and you find yourself a fence or something, or the ground, something hard that you can put one of the ends up against. You take your panel and you put it against the ground or against a fence or against something that will keep it in place. Put it there, and then you grab the other side and you kind of start making that arch above your head. You bring that arch all the way above your head and you bring the one side all the way back over to you to where you are standing inside the arch and both ends are right by your side. At that point, you can kind of bend down and pick up the fence. And when you stand up, prepare to balance because it's gonna be all over the place, flopping around and making it difficult. Slowly stand up, get that balance, and you can walk around with this arch over your head. Look, it's tricky. It might not be the easiest way. If you have plenty of room, you can kind of hold the whole thing up over your head and do it that way, and that's another way you can do it. I did that, and I actually sliced through the tire of my trailer because, like I said, the edges of these are sharp. So if you have the edges out 16 feet around you, you're gonna hit something, you're gonna cut something, you're gonna scratch something. So it's honestly easier to just bend that around you, hold them by your side, pick it up, and walk around that way. Your neighbor's gonna laugh, but it's okay. Let your neighbors laugh. All right, step number 6 is you need to place your panel. You already have your T-posts in the ground. You need to get your panel placed in between them to build your arch. If we're picking up where we left off, you are standing underneath your panel. You got the arch above your head. This is the solo version. Double people, bear with me. Solo people, listen up, this is for you. You're still under that arch, okay? You are walking over to where you're gonna be placing your arch, and you're gonna kind of shimmy. You're gonna kind of shimmy over to where you're placing it, and you're keeping them really close, right by your side. Walk in between your T-posts, and then kind of scoot one arm up and place the one arm against your T-posts. You wanna make sure that you are in between both T-posts and that one side isn't kind of slipping down one side of the T-post. You wanna make sure that your cattle panel is as perfect as possible up against your T-post. If you let go of that other arm, you're gonna just spring it out and hit something and cut a bird's head off. It's not gonna be a good time. You want to gently spread your arm the other way until the other side of that cattle panel is touching the other T-post. And at this point, you're gonna have enough pressure pushing outwards to hold the cattle panel in place. What you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna kind of shimmy the panel and center it on those T-posts. Get it all situated and you're good to go. Now for those people that are lucky that have 2 people, what you're gonna wanna do is when you and your buddy are carrying the panel over, you wanna bring the first end of the panel as you're coming over and you wanna put it down onto the bottom of your T-post there. And then the person that was holding that first end, go help your partner, help them grab the other end and start building that arch and bring it up and over your other T-post and then down onto the other side of them where it's going to have the pressure once again to hold itself in place, situate it, get it centered, get it where it needs to be, and you are good to go. Step number 7 is ditch the zip ties. I feel like every video I see of people building these, they're using zip ties, and zip ties are great. I use zip ties for so many different things, but for something that I want to be permanent, I'm not gonna be using zip ties. Zip ties weather, zip ties get old, they age, they crack, they get dry. They're going to break at some point. You don't want it to break when you've got an entire trellis full of all of your awesome melons or your squashes, whatever it might be. You don't want them to break when you don't want them to break, if that makes sense. Class 1 T-post clips. When you go to buy a T-post, they are going to, most places will give you these clips for free. You don't have to buy them. They're literally, they just give them to you. And this is what they look like. They're kind of just a weird shape, but this is what they are made for. They are made to permanently attach a panel fence to a T-post. This is what they are built for. And to connect these, you can either use pliers or you can use this amazing thing that has saved my life during this whole process. This is a clip bender tool, and you pretty much just, it wraps this clip perfectly around that fence. They sell these on Amazon. I'll put a link below, or you can probably buy these at anywhere that you can buy your T-post. It is just a little yellow thing. It says clip bender on it. These are awesome, not sponsored. This thing just, it's great. This is never going to go anywhere. I can climb up on this thing, I can jump on it, I can do whatever I want to because these clips are so incredibly strong, they're not gonna break on you. These will be there until I pull them off. What I did is for every T-post that I have, I put 3 of these clips on it. And yeah, it might not be as fast as using a zip tie, but I also don't ever have to replace them like I would a zip tie. If you can't find them for free, you can find them on Amazon. I think you can get a package of the clip bender tool and the clips for a decent price, but this is the way to go. Don't go any other way than this way. This is the way. We grow a whole lot of things on our trellises, but one thing we don't grow on our trellises are our tomatoes. And our tomatoes, we grow them in these super awesome, heavy duty, foldable, they fold flat, collapsible tomato cages that we built ourselves. This is something that we also built out of cattle panel, and this is something we have a video on. And if you want to learn how we made these, you can go watch this video right here. And these cages are gonna last a lifetime, and they're gonna hold the biggest of indeterminate tomatoes that you can grow. So go ahead and go watch that video, and I will see you there.